Over time, other elements were removed from Old City Hall. In 1947, 2 ornate grotesques were removed from the base of the staircase during the installation of the War Memorial. Their grotesques were not put back and were eventually lost.
I found the 2 grotesques at a flea market in southwestern Ontario. They were just sitting there for sale, and I said, "What are these?" And they said, "Well, they're from the Old City Hall in Toronto." So I bought them, and I arranged to have the 2 grotesques brought back. Actually, they were in my office for a while in the new City Hall where I worked. But the 2 grotesques were brought back into the Old City Hall and can be seen by members of the public. So I'm happy to have at least contributed that to the Old City Hall, which is, as you probably gathered, my favorite building.
Shortly after the opening of New City Hall in 1966, questions began to arise about what to do with Old City Hall.
In the 1960s, the Eaton Centre was planning its development, and the Eaton Centre plans included the demolition of Old City Hall, and a public outcry rose up against the Eaton Centre's plan to demolish it. Eaton Centre backed off a little bit and said, "Well, we'll keep the tower." Saving a tower was like saving a skull on the mantelpiece. It really didn't do the trick. The idea was to save the entire building itself. And finally, the City Council decided, because of the public pressure and the extreme outpouring of support for the Old City Hall, to save the building and keep it. And it was, I think, the cleaning of the stone that finally convinced the city to preserve the building. And since that time, there's been a lot of work done, and it's been restored both inside and out.
Although the construction of Old City Hall took 10 years, Lennox managed to create a number of other prominent Richardsonian Romanesque buildings during that time, such as the Massey Mausoleum, the Toronto Athletic Club, and the Broadway Methodist Tabernacle. Sadly, only 2 of those buildings remain, the Massey Mausoleum and the Toronto Athletic Club.
If we look at the City Hall Courts building and compare it with the Stewart Building, the former Toronto Athletic Club, at first glance you might think, can this be the same architect? One is all about stone and rustication and really a kind of heroic scale. And then you look at this other buff brick, kind of more gentle building, much more vertically composed building, and you think, can this be the same architect? But indeed the same impulses are there, this kind of desire for weighty, earthbound structures and the kind of picturesqueness that one gains with the towers, and then the beautiful carvings and careful detailing.
The Stewart Building originally opened as the Toronto Athletic Club in 1894 and featured Toronto's first indoor swimming pool. Financial issues had forced the Toronto Athletic Club to vacate the building. Since then, it has been home to the Toronto Technical School, the Toronto Police Headquarters, the Ontario College of Art and Design, Collège des Grands Lacs, and it is now part of the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. The University of Toronto is home to another Richardsonian Romanesque building, Victoria College. Founded in 1831, Victoria College was originally located in Cobourg and known as the Upper Canada Academy. It became Victoria College, then Victoria University, and was eventually relocated to Toronto in 1892 after federating with the University of Toronto.
Victoria College wanted to assert itself with a beautiful new building, which Storm was able to deliver to them. When encountering Victoria College, I immediately have this sense somehow of being in the presence of H.H. Richardson. There's an immediate sense of kind of Richardsonian-ness, if I might say that, about this magnificent structure. The primary entrance path is from the south, and the steps lead to this extremely handsome, beautifully designed archway with the little compressed marble columns on each side. Storm was, like Richardson, I think quite masterful in manipulating light, gaining the deep shadows that he wanted with the entrance portals. We can feel an almost intuitive sense of excellence in terms of proportion and scale. The Vic College building is a very, very refined example of Richardsonian Romanesque. Everything feels like it fits together into a kind of organic whole. You look at it and nothing seems out of place. It has an exuberance, but at the same time a kind of sense of control and sobriety.
Victoria College, we have the towers, but it's very, I will say, very courageous from architectural point of view to have almost like 80% of the turret out, you know. And now we have the carving underneath, and if we take all the piece, the tower will just collapse. That was one of the challenges in this Victoria College. How you can take a stone what is structural, supporting a tower, and replace all the ornamentation with no affecting the rest of the building. But we did it.
By the mid-1890s, the Richardsonian Romanesque style had gone out of fashion because of changing tastes and new construction methods. But the primary reason was that Richardsonian buildings were really expensive to build and maintain.
When we look at a building like Old Vic that's nearly 125 years old, we are confronted with the fact that these buildings, as sturdy and tough as they are also pretty demanding in terms of maintenance and ongoing care. Everything from the periodic cleaning of the stone, the repointing of the masonry, sometimes windows, thermal insulation, things like that have to be upgraded to meet contemporary standards. So it's a real challenge, and it's not an inexpensive thing to do well. So when we find buildings from this era that are being well taken care of, one must admire the owners, the people who care enough about them to find the money and spend the money. And it's an important thing to do in terms of Toronto's heritage and the beautiful aspects of the city.
We build our history with buildings. And I think to create a blacklist, like the one what was even City Hall on, you know, to turn down these monuments, I will call them monuments, you know, it's more than a building. To throw in the garbage all this beautiful carving skill to build what? No, this is my simple question. I think that's a sacrilege, in my opinion. We need to build little by little, building by building, our heritage here. We're a young country, but we get older, little by little.